Okay, so you want to buy a camper van. You've seen the videos, some couple parked at the edge of a cliff somewhere in Utah, coffee steaming on a fold-out table, the sliding door open to a view that looks unreal, captioned something like, "Quit our jobs, best decision ever." You think, no rent, no mortgage, just me, the open road, and a van that pays for itself the moment I stop paying someone else's landlord. That is the picture in your head right now, and I need you to hold on to it for one more minute. Because the real financial story behind owning a camper van is far messier than a sunset photo, and almost nobody tells you what's actually sitting underneath that beautifully built-out interior before you ever turn the key. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why so many people who buy a van to escape rent end up spending more than rent ever cost them, and why the people who actually make this lifestyle work financially think about it in a completely different way than what gets posted online. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button, because this channel breaks down the real economics behind the things people assume are simple, and this one gets more expensive the closer you look. Let's start with what it actually costs to get a van on the road, because this is the first place the fantasy and the reality collide. A used cargo van suitable for conversion, something like a Sprinter, Transit, or ProMaster with reasonable mileage, typically runs between $20,000 and $45,000, and that's before a single cabinet has been built inside it. Buy a brand new one, and you're looking at $50,000 to $70,000 for the shell alone, empty, with nothing but a steel floor and bare metal walls. Now comes the conversion itself, and this is where the number most people are not prepared for shows up. A basic do-it-yourself build using online tutorials and secondhand materials can still run $10,000 to $25,000 once you factor in insulation, electrical wiring, a proper solar setup, water tanks, and a bed platform. A mid-range professional conversion, the kind that actually looks like the videos you've been watching, typically runs $40,000 to $70,000, and a full luxury build with a real kitchen, a wet bath, and custom cabinetry can push past $100,000 on the conversion alone, meaning your total investment before you've driven a single mile on a real trip can land anywhere between $30,000 and $150,000, depending on how far up the ladder you climb. And here's the detail almost nobody explains going in. The conversion isn't just carpentry, it's essentially building a tiny off-grid house on wheels, with electrical systems, propane lines, and water systems that all need to be done correctly, because a mistake in any one of them isn't just an inconvenience, it can be a genuine safety hazard while you're asleep inside it. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the purchase and the build are honestly the easy part to understand. A single number you pay once and move past. The real financial commitment of owning a camper van is a recurring, relentless set of costs that exist whether you're parked in a driveway or 3 states away, and this is exactly where the no-rent fantasy starts to fall apart. Insurance for a converted camper van runs significantly higher than a standard vehicle policy, because you're insuring not just a vehicle but everything built inside it, typically landing somewhere between $100 and $300 a month depending on the van's value and your coverage level. Fuel is the next major shock, because a van this size, especially one loaded down with water tanks, batteries, and cabinetry, typically gets somewhere between 12 and 18 miles per gallon, meaning someone who drives even a modest 1,500 miles a month is looking at $300 to $500 in fuel alone, a number that climbs fast for anyone actually living the full-time travel lifestyle rather than taking occasional weekend trips. Then there's maintenance, and this is the one that quietly bankrupts people's assumptions about van life being cheap, because these vehicles are driven far harder and far more often than the average car, and a major service interval, brakes, tires rated for the extra weight, transmission service, can easily run $1,000 to $3,000 a year, even on a well-maintained van. If you've subscribed already, thank you. And if you haven't yet, this is genuinely the moment, because what comes next is the part that decides whether van life becomes a genuinely sustainable lifestyle or a slow-motion financial regret. Let's talk about where you actually park at night, because this is the single biggest hidden cost in this entire lifestyle, and it's almost never mentioned in the videos that make it look free. Picture this. You've just quit your job, sold most of your stuff, and driven off into what feels like total freedom. The first week is incredible. Free camping on public land, no cost at all. Then you realize free dispersed camping spots are often far from cities, meaning every grocery run or work call requires driving somewhere with cell signal, and eventually you need a shower, laundry, or simply a guaranteed safe place to sleep in a city that doesn't allow overnight street parking. Campgrounds and RV parks with actual hookups typically run $30 to $60 a night, and if you're staying anywhere longer term, monthly RV park rates can run $600 to $1,500 a month, depending on the region, numbers that start looking uncomfortably close to the rent you thought you were escaping in the first place. This is exactly why experienced van lifers rarely rely on a single strategy, instead mixing free public land camping with occasional paid nights for laundry and charging, treating the balance between the two as the actual skill of doing this affordably, because the person who assumes every single night will be free ends up either constantly stressed about finding a legal spot or quietly bleeding money on paid camping without ever budgeting for it properly. This connects to something almost nobody explains to first-time van owners before they hit the road. The age and quality of your electrical and water systems determine your entire daily comfort and your entire ongoing cost, in a way that isn't obvious from a walkthrough video. A properly sized solar and battery setup, something in the $2,000 to $5,000 range built correctly, can genuinely run your fridge, your lights, and your devices for days without needing to plug in anywhere. A cheap or undersized system, built to save money up front, means constantly hunting for outlets, running the van's engine just to charge a battery, or paying for campground hookups far more often than someone with a properly built system, turning what looked like a one-time savings into a recurring cost for years. And this is where the real risk hides, because when something in that system fails hundreds of miles from the nearest specialty RV shop, a full solar controller or inverter replacement can run $800 to $2,000. And unlike a house, you can't simply wait a week for a part to arrive while living somewhere else comfortably, since the van broken down is also your only bedroom. Quick reminder, if this is helping you see the numbers more clearly, subscribing genuinely helps this channel keep making these breakdowns, and there's a lot more coming on exactly this kind of decision. Now let's put the entire picture together, because this is where the freedom dream and the actual financial reality either line up or they don't. Take a mid-range converted van, $55,000 all in between the vehicle and the build, financed with a reasonable down payment, and a realistic monthly cost lands somewhere around $500 for the loan payment, $200 for insurance, $400 for fuel at a moderate travel pace, $200 for a maintenance reserve, and another $250 to $400 for a mix of paid camping nights and laundry, food storage, and propane refills. Added up, and total monthly cost of actually living this lifestyle lands somewhere between $1,500 and $1,800 a month, which sounds dramatically cheaper than rent in a major city, and genuinely can be, but is nowhere close to the basically free framing that gets sold online, especially once you remember that vans, unlike apartments, depreciate steadily every single year you own one, meaning the $55,000 you put in isn't sitting there waiting to be recovered the way a home's value generally holds up over time. Here's the part that never shows up in the sunset photo, and it's worth saying plainly before we close this out. The people who actually make this lifestyle sustainable long-term almost never think of the van as an escape from every cost of living. They think of it as trading one specific set of expenses, rent, utilities, a fixed address, for a completely different set, fuel, maintenance, camping fees, and the mental cost of constantly planning where you'll sleep next. And the math only genuinely works out in their favor when they've built a remote income that travels with them, because a van without a steady source of money attached to it isn't a lifestyle, it's just a very expensive way to slowly run out of savings with a beautiful view outside the window while it happens. The travelers who make it work for years, not months, are the ones who budgeted honestly before they ever bought the van, who treated the build quality and the electrical system as an investment rather than a place to cut corners, and who understood from day one that freedom on the road was never actually free. It just moved the bill somewhere less obvious than a landlord's monthly invoice. If this video helped you see what's actually happening behind that beautiful van life photo, do yourself a favor and subscribe, because we break down the real numbers behind the things people assume are simple, and this is exactly the kind of thing nobody tells you before you sign for that loan.